People who want to be with me will be in my life, and I am so happy about the life that I'm creating. And
Friends, my love, it's me, Meri, and I welcome you to Starspill USA today. We step into a story so layered, so shrouded in secrets, that even longtime Sister Wives fans will feel as though they're watching this family for the very first time. Let me ask you something straight away. Where does the truth really begin? And more to the point, where does it end? Because if you thought what you saw on the explosive new season premiere of Sister Wives was the truth, I'm here to tell you it was only the faintest shadow of reality. What you witnessed was a watered-down narrative carved neatly by TLC's editors to look like just another marital quarrel. But peel away the glossy editing, the somber background music, and the manufactured tears, and you will see a storm that had been brewing for years of betrayal, years of silence, years of one woman being erased while another was elevated to the pinnacle of the Brown Empire. That woman, of course, is Meri Brown, the quiet, reserved first wife who for more than a decade played the dutiful role while others took center stage. In this season's premiere, however, Meri was no longer the shrinking violet. What we saw her shouting across the living room at Kody Brown. The man who spent years silencing her was nothing short of a verbal dismantling. But make no mistake, darlings, this was not an outburst born of fleeting rage. No, this was an eruption decades in the making. And if insiders are to be believed, it wasn't spontaneous at all. It was carefully planned, legally fortified, and meticulously aimed at exposing the very foundation upon which the so-called Brown dynasty rests. You see, what television audiences were shown lasted no more than a few minutes, clipped into digestible bites of drama. But according to exclusive notes from someone present on set, Meri's confrontation with Kody went on for over 90 minutes. 90 minutes of fury, evidence, and accusation. 90 minutes where the conversation veered away from love and marriage into darker waters: money, fraud, and favoritism. Imagine the scene. Meri no longer begging for attention, no longer asking meekly for scraps of affection, but standing upright. Her voice shaking, not with fear, but with years of suppressed anger. Staring Kody in the eye and demanding, "Where is the $200,000 of family money that disappeared during the Flagstaff move?" Witnesses say she didn't stop there. She turned her gaze on Robyn Brown, the perennial favorite, the untouchable queen in Kody's eyes, and said, "We all know where it went." Now ask yourself, why did that line never make it to air? Why would TLC excise such a moment? The answer is brutally simple. It wasn't about protecting Meri. It wasn't even entirely about protecting Kody. It was about protecting Robyn. And more importantly, protecting TLC itself from becoming entangled in allegations of financial impropriety. Because if viewers had heard Meri accuse Robyn directly of benefiting from missing funds, the fallout wouldn't have been confined to the Brown household. It would have spilt into courtrooms, into contracts, into the very business structure that has turned Sister Wives into a multi-million-dollar franchise. And here's where the story tilts from shocking to downright staggering. Multiple insiders now claim that Meri's tirade was not impromptu at all. She had consulted lawyers and accountants before cameras ever rolled. She came to that set prepared not just to rant, but to present her case like a barrister standing before a jury. One crew member was overheard saying, "It was like Meri came to war prepared." She wasn't just speaking. She was compiling evidence. If that is true, then what we saw on screen was not a marital spat, but the opening shot of a much larger war that could extend beyond the living room and into the legal system. Rumors are swirling of potential civil filings, even criminal investigations that could pull both Kody and Robyn into the dock. And remember, this is hardly the first time the Browns' finances have raised eyebrows. We've seen leaked property deeds, strange business ventures, and tax discrepancies whispered about for years. But never before has a wife stood on camera, looked her husband in the eye, and declared that she had the documents to prove it. Darlings, picture the moment. Meri, standing up, her finger pointed squarely at Kody, her voice cutting through the silence. "You can't silence me anymore." One producer later admitted, Kody's face went from red to white in seconds. That line alone could have been a series finale in itself. Yet TLC decided to bury it deep in the editing bin. Why? Because the truth was too dangerous. And what if Robyn? Robyn. On screen, we saw her dabbing delicately at her eyes, tissues trembling in her hands, the innocent bystander caught in the crossfire. But insiders who were physically in the room tell a very different story. They claim Robyn wasn't crying at all. In fact, she was smirking, almost triumphant, until the cameras swiveled in her direction. Only then did she summon tears, her well-rehearsed fragility sliding perfectly into place. It's a trick we've seen time and again, isn't it? Robyn as the victim, Robyn as the misunderstood, Robyn as the one who somehow suffers most. But when you strip away the edits, the optics tell a far uglier truth. Robyn isn't just Kody's favorite emotionally, she's his favorite financially. Think of it. While Meri was relegated to rental properties, her name erased from deeds she once helped pay for, Robyn was handed a near $900,000 Flagstaff estate, with enough space for her children, her business, her comfort. And it didn't stop there. Robyn's online jewelry business propped up with family funds. Robyn's children in private schools paid for without hesitation. Robyn's mortgage covered while others were told to wait, to sacrifice, to be patient. Meri, Janelle, Christine, they were told there wasn't enough. But for Robyn, there was always enough. So when Meri asked, how can you claim there is no money for me, for Janelle, for Christine, but always enough for Robyn? The silence that followed was deafening. Insiders say Kody didn't deny it. He didn't even attempt to refute the facts. Instead, he deflected. He blamed TLC's paychecks, property taxes, even Meri's so-called lack of contribution. But producers knew better. They knew such a defense would ruin his image. And so it was cut. And then there are the LLCs, the limited liability companies quietly filed with connections to both Robyn and Coyote Pass, naming Kody and Robyn as managers, leaving Meri, Janelle, and Christine out in the cold. When Meri declared, "I built this family with you and you erased me from it," she wasn't speaking poetically about love lost. She was speaking literally about being written out of the financial script that has funneled power and wealth straight into Robyn's hands. This, my love, is why Meri's explosion was so seismic. It wasn't merely the cry of a wife scorned. It was the culmination of years of systematic erasure. A direct challenge to the fraudulent foundation upon which the Brown family now teeters. And when Christine, usually silent in Meri's battles, finally broke the silence to support her, the room itself seemed to tremble. For the first time, the other wives weren't just quietly watching. They were recognizing that Meri's fight was their fight too. What we saw in the premiere was only the faintest glimmer of truth. What TLC cut, what they spliced, rearranged, and buried is the story that truly matters. A story not of plural marriage, but of financial exploitation, corporate manipulation, of a dynasty crumbling under the weight of its own greed. And so I ask again, where does the truth start and where does it stop? With Meri's trembling voice declaring, "I should have left years ago." With Kody's pale face as he realized his grip on power was slipping. With Robyn's crocodile tears designed to manipulate an audience. Or perhaps, darlings, the truth doesn't stop at all. Perhaps this is only the beginning of the end of the Brown dynasty. A fall so spectacular that no amount of TLC editing will ever be able to disguise it again. After Meri Brown's explosive accusations about missing family funds, the entire room shifted. Christine leaned forward, her tone steady yet cutting, and said, "She's not wrong, Kody. We've all seen it." Now here's the twist. That line never made the final cut. TLC trimmed it out, but insiders swear it landed like a punch to Kody's gut. For a man who had always thrived on dividing his wives, pitting one against the other, it was nothing short of a betrayal to see Christine break rank and side with Meri and Janelle. But Christine didn't just back Meri verbally, she came with evidence of her own. Crew whispers say she brought up the unpaid property tax on Coyote Pass, pointing out the obvious contradiction. Robyn's nearly $900,000. Flagstaff Mansion was protected and paid for, while the family's so-called dreamland sat in limbo. Taxes piling up, opportunities vanishing. One producer later described that scene as the closest we've ever seen Janelle come to open rebellion. The air was electric, the tension so thick you could practically hear hearts pounding. On one side, Kody and Robyn, red-faced, scrambling, cornered. On the other, Meri, Christine, and Janelle, finally standing shoulder to shoulder, exposing cracks that fans have suspected for years, but never witnessed so directly. And here's the catch. Instead of showing this united front, the version that aired on TLC was neutered. They cut to talking heads, Kody sighing about being misunderstood, Robyn dabbing her eyes with tissues. The narrative was sanitized. Why? Because if viewers had seen the wives standing together defiantly, Kody's long-standing image as patriarch would have crumbled overnight. TLC thrives on chaos, on division, not solidarity. Still, those who were in the room swear it happened. And for the first time, Kody looked outnumbered. Christine pressed harder, asking the question that hung in the air like a knife. Are you building a family, Kody? Or are you building Robyn's kingdom? Cameras caught the words, but the footage was cut. Producers knew if that line aired unedited, fans would finally see the truth. Now here's where it got uglier. Kody, rattled and raging, didn't hold his composure. His voice rose so high, boom, mics had to be lowered. His defense: denial. That's not true. None of this is true. He shouted, pacing the living room like a trapped animal. But when pressed for receipts, his story fell apart. He dodged specifics, pivoted to accusing Meri of betrayal. You've been against me for years. Don't pretend this is about money. This is about you being disloyal. Classic Kody flipped the blame, avoid the facts, and shift the spotlight onto the wives. But this time, the tactic failed. Witnesses described Meri laughing. Not a soft laugh, but a sharp, bitter one. Disloyal. She fired back. I've been loyal to a man who erased me. If that's loyalty, then what do you call siphoning family funds into one wife's bank account? The room froze. Even the producers, usually quick to intervene, held their breath. And Kody cornered, slammed his hand on the table so violently the crew winced. You don't understand how hard I've worked for this family, he barked. But Christine shot back instantly. No, Kody, you've worked for Robyn, and that's the part TLC never let the world see. Here's what really happened next. Kody ripped off his mic, storming out mid-filming, muttering about being ambushed. For nearly 20 minutes, production halted as executives scrambled, trying to calm him down. When he returned, his face was flushed, his hands trembling, but the damage was done. What aired later was a watered-down version. Kody sulking, complaining about ungrateful wives. What fans never saw was the meltdown of a man watching his control collapse in real time. And then all eyes turned to Robyn. True to form, her first weapon was tears. Crew members swear she grabbed a tissue before she even spoke. I don't know why you think I'm the enemy. I didn't ask for any of this, she sniffled. To viewers, the performance might have felt sympathetic. But to Meri, Christine, and Janelle, who had lived through years of watching Robyn rise while they sank, the act didn't land. Meri cut her off bluntly. You didn't need to ask Robyn. You profited from it. For the first time, Robyn's tears didn't soften the room. They hardened it. Janelle nodded, Christine's eyes burned, and Robyn's usual tactic fell flat. Her second defense: blame TLC. She insisted that money decisions were the network's doing, that she had no control. But insiders know better. Filings exist, LLCs with Kody and Robyn listed. Business ventures tied directly to them, leaving the other wives out in the cold. Christine pounced. So TLC bought your house. TLC paid your mortgage. Or was that our family money? Robyn's face dropped. And just like that, cameras cut away. The public only saw her sobbing about being misunderstood. What they didn't see was her excuses disintegrating under pressure. But here's the kicker. Leaked raw audio allegedly captured Robyn whispering to Kody off camera, "You don't have to explain anything to them. Imagine if that had aired. The illusion of innocence would have shattered. TLC knew it. They buried it. And Meri, she wasn't finished. According to multiple insiders, she reached into her handbag, pulled out a folder, and placed it on the table. She didn't even open it, but the message was clear. She had receipts, property records, bank transfers, possibly even communications tied to the infamous Coyote Pass fiasco. Sources claim the documents revealed over $200,000 funneled into Robyn's expenses, while the other wives were told to make sacrifices. Kody lashed out, accusing Meri of being vindictive of snooping. But notice what he didn't do. He didn't dispute the numbers, and that's when the stakes shifted. Meri allegedly warned, if this doesn't change, I'll let the judge decide. That single line sent shockwaves through production. Lawyers, judges, legal action. That's not family drama anymore. That's scandal. That's exposure. That's a risk TLC cannot afford. And so they cut it all. But here's the truth. Yanam, in that room, Kody Brown's carefully constructed empire cracked. His wives weren't just arguing anymore. They were aligning. They were building a case. And for the first time in over a decade, the patriarch of sister wives wasn't untouchable. He was cornered. He was cornered. And TLC has no interest in opening that box. But think about it. Why would Meri take documents to a family shoot if she wasn't going to use them? Why would she risk such a confrontation without a safety net? This wasn't merely a wife lashing out. This was a wife quietly building a case. And here's the twist. One crew member claims they saw Meri slip the folder into Christine's hands once filming ended. Christine reportedly whispered, "We'll need these." If that account is true, it means Meri's battle isn't confined to the living room. It's heading into far more dangerous territory for Kody, for Robyn, and perhaps even for TLC itself. The moment Meri slammed down that folder, the drama stopped being a family squabble and transformed into something much bigger. Suddenly, TLC was staring at a genuine problem. Several insiders insist that senior production executives had been present that day, observing from the sidelines. When Meri made veiled references to judges, lawyers, and evidence, panic rippled through the room. Consider this. TLC has constructed Sister Wives into one of its most lucrative franchises. Millions of viewers tune in religiously to watch the Browns unravel. But the very moment that unraveling crosses into allegations of financial fraud, the network itself could be implicated. If funds belonging to family members were misappropriated under the very gaze of their cameras, how long before the public began to ask whether TLC knowingly turned a blind eye? One crew member recalls hearing a producer mutter into his headset, "Cut cameras." For nearly half an hour, no footage was captured as executives huddled behind closed doors with Kody and Robyn, Meri and Christine. Meanwhile, we're left pacing the set in sheer frustration. When filming eventually resumed, the mood had shifted. The wives appeared noticeably subdued. Kody remained defensive, but the fiery outbursts had been dialed down. Robyn's tears came on cue, but they felt more rehearsed than raw. In short, the true confrontation had been excised. What audiences later watched was the sanitized version, dramatic enough to grab headlines, but not damning enough to get the network dragged into court. Behind the scenes, TLC allegedly issued fresh orders to its production team. Avoid capturing anything frank about fraud, missing money, or legal threats. Focus only on emotional outbursts, not financial scandals. Emotions sell shows. Financial impropriety invites solicitors. Here lies the irony. In trying to bury the financial angle, TLC may only have galvanized the wives further. One insider swears Christine left the set muttering, "If they won't show the truth, we'll show it ourselves." And perhaps that's precisely what TLC fears most. Because if Meri, Janelle, and Christine decide to take their documents public, the fallout won't be confined to primetime television. It will spill over into tabloids, courtrooms, and headlines that TLC has no power to edit or suppress, for now. The network is treading a tightrope, profiting from Kody's implosions while hoping Meri doesn't strike the match that sets everything ablaze. When the cameras stopped rolling, the drama most certainly did not. If anything, the real shockwaves began once the wives packed up and returned to their separate homes. For Meri, the showdown proved cathartic. Insiders claim she went back to her rental that evening, exhausted yet relieved. Telling a close friend, "I finally said aloud what I've been holding inside for 10 years. That kind of confession doesn't vanish into thin air once the lights are switched off. It lingers, it festers, and it fuels the next move. Christine, for her part, apparently phoned her children as soon as she walked through the door, recounting how she had stood shoulder to shoulder with Meri and how, for once, Kody couldn't manipulate his way out. One producer later reported that Christine said, "It was the first time in years I felt like we were on the same side." Janelle, ever the pragmatic one, didn't waste time. She spent hours rifling through her own paperwork in the aftermath tax returns, property deeds, business ledgers, determined to assess what evidence she could contribute. This was no longer about feelings. It was about proof. And Kody, he fared far worse. Sources claim he barricaded himself inside Robyn's mansion, raging late into the night about what he described as a betrayal pact amongst the wives. Convinced TLC would manipulate the edit in his favor, he ranted about ambushes and disloyalty, but his sense of control crumbled once his own children began asking questions. Several of the older Brown offspring, already weary of their father's favoritism, were informed of Meri's accusations. One daughter reportedly asked outright, "Dad, did you really use family money for Robyn's house?" That simple question posed by his own child sent Kody into a fury. Robyn, meanwhile, defaulted to her well-worn coping mechanism, the tears. To friends, she presented herself as the eternal victim, claiming she had never sought special treatment and that the other wives were simply jealous. Yet, in Flagstaff, whispers painted a different picture. Neighbors who had seen her lavish mansion, her multiple vehicles, and her comfortable lifestyle found Meri's allegations far easier to believe than Robyn's rehearsed sobs. So, while the televised episode portrayed the fight as dramatic yet ultimately contained, the reality was starkly different. The Browns left that set more fractured than ever before. For the first time, Meri wasn't merely the isolated wife hovering in the corner. She had become the spark that ignited a blaze Kody could never hope to extinguish. When the episode finally aired, TLC assumed they had managed to paper over the cracks. But the fans weren't so naive. Within minutes of the credits rolling, social media erupted. Hashtags like #JusticeForMeri and #KodyExposed trended across platforms. Viewers dissected every word, every glance, every awkward silence. And the consensus was deafening. Meri had finally articulated what everyone else had long suspected. Comments poured in. "She has carried this family on her back for years, and this is how he treats her. Kody is building Robyn's kingdom with everyone else's money." You could see the truth written all over her face. The backlash didn't stop with Kody. Robyn too faced a tidal wave of criticism. Fans accused her of weaponizing, tears acting the victim while enjoying the spoils of Kody's favoritism. Memes of her crying face spread like wildfire online, many dubbing her performance Oscar-worthy. Then came the petitions. Fan groups launched online campaigns demanding TLC release unedited footage and stop shielding Kody and Robyn. Others threatened outright boycotts unless Christine, Janelle, and Meri were given more airtime to present their side of the story. For TLC, this was a nightmare scenario. The Browns' dysfunction sells, but only so long as viewers believe they're seeing authenticity. The moment the audience feels manipulated, trust collapses and ratings follow. Executives reportedly scrambled into crisis meetings, debating whether to lean into the backlash by framing future episodes around Kody being held accountable. Kody himself was livid. According to insiders, he branded fans brainwashed and accused TLC of editing him into the villain. But his protests fell flat. The sheer volume of messages labeling him exactly that, the villain of Sister Wives, drowned out any defense. For years, Meri had been the silent, sidelined wife whom fans begged to walk away. Now, by standing up, she had transformed into something new. the people's champion. That metamorphosis frightened Kody and Robyn more than anything. Because once fans take sides, the show's future slips out of Kody's control. The fallout from Meri's explosive confrontation wasn't about one episode, or even one season. It was about the very survival of sister wives. For more than a decade. The program sold itself as a daring social experiment to man balancing for marriages, navigating faith, family, and modern struggles. But that ideal has long since crumbled. Christine walked away. Janelle planted her feet. And now Meri, the supposedly quiet, compliant one, had detonated the illusion in full public view. The larger picture is this. Kody's authority is collapsing. In polygamy, the patriarch is meant to be the center, the glue that holds the family together. But what happens when each wife defies him, or simply leaves? What happens when the head of the household becomes the least respected man under his own roof? On national television, Kody can try to spin it. He can blame the edit, social media, or haters. But the reality is, plain in every episode, his blatant favoritism towards Robyn. His coldness towards the others, his obsession with control disguised as unity. It has all been exposed. And Meri's defiance was the point of no return. Defiance was the point of no return.